What if I told you that you could gather all your customer pain points and sort them and actually do something with that? That's going to be the topic of this episode of the Cozy AI Kitchen. Ben, come on in, Ben. Ben is a partner at McKensey and the design expert that everyone turns to figure out how to make things work in a large organization. Ben, how you doing, Ben?
Very well, John. Good to see you.
Is the fridge feeling okay? Do you feel cold in there?
It's perfect for a British person. This is just the temperature I like to be.
Well, Ben's background is a little interesting because he grew up on a ship. Ben, can you talk about growing up on a ship, a boat?
I did. I grew up on a houseboat on the River Thames, moored next to a motor torpedo boat with a troupe of burlesque dancers living on it.
And you're a combo designer, engineer, business strategist. How'd that come to be?
That's it. When I was 4 years old, I told my parents confidently I was going to be an inventor. I couldn't find anything which quite fit that. So the combination of business, design, and engineering is as close as I've managed to professionally get there.
Well, I know that the impact you're making on the world and design for large organizations is meaningful. And now with AI, I know you're excited about it like me. What excites you?
I think this is a wonderful moment. I do. I am a terrible analogy, but I will share it with you nonetheless, John. I look on this moment sort of like when water went from scarce resource to commodity 150 years ago. You didn't used to be able to use water to do things like shower. That would be seen as a waste of water. And I think it's the same at the moment with creativity. Creativity is the select few who are allowed to design and make. And I think we're in a moment where suddenly we're going to have this explosion of creativity. I don't know what the equivalent of showering is, but it's coming, John, and it's going to be delicious.
Well, that's why we're here, because we're talking a lot about it, thinking about it, and creativity is about making a little mess, as you know, Ben, as having lived on that boat. It looked very clean, though. But what we're going to do is we're going to cook. And what we're going to cook is a variety of things. First off, we're going to use semantic code, because semantic code, as you know, is very powerful. Ah, it's the glowing. And semantic code is basically AI prompts. But AI prompts don't work unless you have an AI model. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of a GPT 3.5 turbo. See that shine, sparkle? I want to note that everyone thinks that the model is going to soak your data, right? It's a brick. It's a brick. Bricks, the same everywhere in the world. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use some old-fashioned code, regular code too, because the regular kind of way of computation hasn't changed. We're going to take these ingredients and cook them in an AI system to be able to kind of get this to work. 1 second. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's a lot of them. I'm going to put the brick over here to work with this. Okay. And of course, we're going to take the kind of data that you acquire as the global research guru of McKinsey and add that to the orchestration, and we're going to cook away. That's, of course, a metaphor, as you know. Let's go to the code now, shall we? All right. Now we're in the code, and I want to remind you, we're in the Cozy AI Kitchen. So are you feeling cozy in there, Ben? Are you feeling cozy still?
All good so far, John, although
So
I'm
far.
worried that there's going to be a fire with the paper in the toaster.
The heat temperature thing is a little bit hard. So Ben is McKinsey's design leadership expert, and really, he said this thing on LinkedIn that stuck with me. Do we become authentic but simple apes in the face of AI overlords? Perhaps we apes will still have authentic leadership qualities that even the best AI will struggle to match for a while. Listing accountability, presence, emotion, sparkle. That is Ben's recipe for being an authentic leader. Now, as an authentic leader, Ben, we're going to do some authentic cooking here. We're going to be using the AI completion model and basically make things happen with customer feedback. I know how much you love customer feedback. Isn't that your thing? Data is everything.
I am a fan, and there was a piece of research we did about 5 years ago, which surprised me. I thought there would be one way of doing customer research that was much more powerful than others. And what we found from the research, we looked at 300 companies who are making fabulous products. And it turned out it was still a case that quantity overcame quality. In fact, there was a magic number 6. I don't know why the number 6, John, but if companies find 6 different ways of listening to their users, whether that be through surveys, through user groups, through other techniques to gather data about them, those companies were consistently making better products, better services, and better experiences.
Well, when you think about 6, I've added a 6th element to the feedback list here. Grew up in a houseboat, but this is basically taking all that information, 6 customer feedback moments, and we're going to send it into an AI plugin that does design thinking. Here we go. I'm going to cook it right now. We're cooking it up. Again, it's using a model. It's using semantic code. It's using regular computer code like that we see here on the screen, but it's taking in this data that we gave it. The radio won't turn on. It's sputtered due to static. And we've asked the model to produce a list of sentiments. As you see here, Ben, it says there's frustration in that. There's satisfaction in there. There's also confusion in there. Now, I like to plate my stuff here in the kitchen, Ben. So I'm going to plate it a bit. Now it's so nicely pretty printed. How are the customers feeling? Now, Ben, having done this so many times in your career of gathering big data and thick data, how are you feeling about an AI that could do this? Useful, not useful? What are you thinking?
I think hugely useful. And one of the things that we often asked when doing these type of exercises in companies is to use different people, different techniques to look at customer sentiment. Someone whose background is in technology, someone whose background is in psychology, someone whose background is in finance. And what's wonderful about what you're cooking here is you're taking many different forms of tools and techniques all together and giving us a very clever additional voice. I think it's complementary and it tastes good so far, John. Keep going.
Well, Ben, you're saying something that's so key, which is the feedback and how someone interprets it. You want to have a diversity of opinions of the analysis of that, correct? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it. And a diversity in how you gather it, and then a diversity in how you synthesize it. Both of those steps are critical.
Exactly. So just for the people visiting the kitchen from wherever you are in the world, Ben just nailed the future topic. It's called personas. I have a jar of personas in the kitchen here, so we'll shake that for a little bit. But all right. So I want you to note that when you run these things in the kernel, there are certain things you want to know. There is a model, that brick. There are tokens used, meaning that processing occurs and you got to pay for that processing. There's a combination of what's called completion tokens and prompt tokens. Tokens is stuff that the data we've pushed in there and the prompt. And the completion tokens are the resulting table. Total tokens 206. And that's not that expensive. How much time did it take? Roughly 3 seconds. Note that we have a temperature setting. I like to think that 0 is freezy, 1 is super hot. So 0.9 means that we let it be very creative, basically. Top P, we set it to 0.5. 0 means kind of really bounded in a lower number of words. And 1 means like using all the words it wants to. And so we set it to 0.5. And so, Ben, it was 0.9. Now, when you're working with a business, do they want a 0.9 or they want a 0.1? This is a loaded question.
Well, the wonderful thing with AI is you can have both. You can have both, which is again a decision which never used to be available to organizations. I think this goes back to the shower analogy, when the ability to do this type of analysis was a scarce resource which only a very select few knew how to. You had to make that decision. Now you can have different personas of analysts
Yeah.
running at the same time, look at the output, and it puts you in a much richer and stronger position as a leader.
Okay. And so now we can do a little more cooking here, because as we know, design thinking isn't just the empathize chunk. There's also define, ideate, prototype, test. I want to do another example here, Ben, where we're going to take the output of the empathize work and pop it into the define type of work, which is trying to define the problem. Because as we know, you can't solve something if you don't define the problem. And here it's taken that sentiment and the customer feedback and produce an analysis, the definition of it, and possible root cause. So when you see this kind of an extra level processing, Ben, as the expert sort of Michelin star chef of this, what's your reaction?
It's still looking good. And when I look at this, I'm not sure it's a Michelin star dish yet, but it's a very capable dish. And I think what this, to push the analogy too far, John, does is a lot of people who are designers, creatives, or people in the user research business, it moves them from under chefs to chefs earlier in their career. It allows them to be creative directors earlier in their career, because it allows them to have the AI doing some of the more, call it mundane work, to do the structure. And then 90% of the humanity can be looking at it, reviewing at it, tweaking it, refining it, making it better and beautiful. And I think for many people, that's going to be scary initially, but it's going to be wonderful in the long term when they realize actually they can focus on the bits which are most creative, most nuanced, most different and special, and make the diamond sparkle.
This is kind of an example of how, there's that aha that I had when I realized when I was using GPT 3.5 Turbo, right? This is like a great model, but when you use GPT-4, it's pretty amazing. This is like, when you use this and the responses are incredible. And lastly, on your point of user research, what's so critical, sorry to step in front of you, is you want a jumbo jar of personas, different perspectives, different ways to think about different users and how they respond to this information. So that was Cooking with Ben Sheppard of McKensey. Ben, thank you for joining us from London. And any parting thoughts to the audience of the kitchen?
No, I think it's a wonderful format, and I think cozy is the word. There's a lot of people right now who are feeling a little scared of AI, particularly in the creative space. Will this replace me? Will this replace user research? Maybe in 50 years, yes, our AI overlords will take over and there'll be nothing left of humanity. But for the moment, it's probably the greatest moment to be alive. You've now got the ability to elevate yourself. You have the ability for AI to do the mundane, to do the repetitive, and to do the bits which, frankly, you didn't enjoy doing. And that gives you the freedom to then focus all of your time on the bits which are most human, most authentic, most wonderful. So with that, John, thank you for inviting me to the kitchen, and looking forward to seeing the other recipes you come up with.
Thank you, Ben. All right, so that is the episode that you were wondering, what the heck is the Cozy AI Kitchen? We're going to talk to incredible guests. We're going to cook with AI. We're going to share some actual code. You can access a repo, try it out yourself, taste it yourself. But most importantly, the takeaway from the guest is always something that I think I will be taking away from these shows. Thanks for joining in, and see you in the future.